I started DJing because I was attracted to some of the bands that I had found and discovered living in Los Angeles. And I was like, oh, this is like my tie back to my hometown. Right. And then I just kept going to those parties. And then I was like, all right, well, maybe like I want to be involved with these parties. These are things that I actually like really enjoy. And then that slowly evolved into being like, hey, why don't you DJ? And I'm like, okay, I'll try it out. And then that turned into like, it just spiraled after that. So.
Yeah. When they were saying like, why don't you try DJing, was your introduction to it learning on somebody else's equipment, or you just decided to go all in and kind of really dive in with your own stuff?
So, I mean, I had already been like very heavily like researching music just because I was like helping throw events, I guess. But I learned how to practice and play on CDJs because I was working at these clubs that were throwing these parties, and I had asked them, I was like, hey, can I come in before you guys open, like around like 8 or 9 p.m. and just play on your CDJs for an hour and like kind of get the hang of it. So I did that a couple times. I had this like sound engineer for this venue called Bardo. It was in Miami. Okay. Throwback, it closed down.
Oh, okay. There's a Bardo here, but it has no relation.
No, yeah, okay. No affiliation.
Right.
I know, it's so weird. But yeah, so I would play there like every weekend basically before the club opened, and then I would, just hang out, and slowly and surely things like after like my first DJ set I played on an iPad, but it looked like I was like on, it said like Pioneer iPad, and I was like literally just like using my fingers.
Sick.
And it was, my friend saw it and he was like, you're not doing that ever again. And then I was like, okay, whatever. But it looked like I was playing on CDJs when you look at like the photos from that event. And like literally a week later, someone was like, oh, you're a DJ. Okay, like let's have you play a Bacardi event. I'm like, I don't actually know how to play on real equipment. So I had to practice, and like I got thrown into it. Like,
and then, yeah, I've heard a lot of people, they get thrown into it, and then from there you kind of just have to pick it up.
Yeah, exactly. Also, I mean, it's obviously very enjoyable,
Right. I don't think too many people are like, dreading the fact that they have to go up and play.
Right. And then like after that, it was like, okay, well now you're DJing, so it looks like you have to make music now, because like that's, the next step. You have to make music. You can't just be a DJ. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to learn how to make music. And so then from there, it just kept going.
Who are those people that were kind of giving you those fast-paced tips to get through the music industry?
Just other male DJs. One of them, Pirate Stereo. He's the one that I started working with first as a promoter and then as a DJ, and I still work with him to this day. I mean, he still books me for things in Miami. And then the other guys that were telling me about production are these guys called Dude Skywalker, and they do a lot
familiar.
Yeah, they do like a lot of like Burning Man-esque kind of techno stuff.
And then you were saying the gentleman that booked you, Pirate, what was it?
Oh, Pirate Stereo.
Pirate Stereo. Was that at the Dream Basil show that you had in Miami?
No, that was actually LA promoters that booked me for that. Nice. So Dream Basil was with like Matt Orlov and
that's right.
the Houseplants guys.
Yeah. Oh, great people.
I know, they're so nice.
Yeah. We're working with them hopefully for a Coachella show, this upcoming thing. So it's such a small world, and it's crazy how like the industry really is that tight knit that everybody kind of knows someone through someone else.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. And this is the first time you and I are meeting, but it's funny because I feel like I've seen your name, and I know you through different bookings and different, friends collectives. I'm just curious, is Nala, is it from the Lion King?
No.
It's not from the Lion King.
I guess distantly it is.
Okay.
It's from my friend's dog.
Oh,
I was looking for a DJ name at that time, and she always had a way of having like the best pet names. Okay. So I was like, oh, that sounds really nice phonetically. Like when you say Nala, it's just like,
Yeah.
So it was just kind of like
so in one way it's tied to it.
Right, because she named her dog after the Lion. I mean,
right.
But like, I don't like to have any sort of affiliation, even though it's like way too late. But yeah.
Do people say that a lot? Do they ask
every single time?
Oh God,
I'm
sorry to be one of those people.
No, it's okay. It's my own doing, but I trademarked it. It's mine. So
no kidding.
So Lion King cannot produce music under Nala or perform, I guess, like live shows under the name Nala.
No kidding.
I know.
So there can be no Broadway, literally nothing, because once you trademark it, it's only yours.
It's mine. Yeah. If they ever tried to do a spin-off of just Nala, I could be like, hey, it's mine. You can't do that. Yeah. And then they'll try and sue me probably. But
other way around. I was going to say, let them do it, and then you can sue them.
I know,
and you'll probably settle for a lot.
Yeah, and then I'll just change my name.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. I mean, because we were talking, I mean, you and I were kind of talking before air about like how important it is to kind of find your own identity as an artist. And was that something that did you pay much mind? Like, did you always go by Nala first and foremost?
Oh, no.
What's your real name?
My name is Stefania.
Stefania, that's right.
Okay, so my name by default is way too complicated to actually say if you read it on like a lineup or something like that. Like even everyone says it wrong. Like if you read my name, everyone's always said it wrong. It's my whole life. They say Stefania. They say like I don't even want to get into it. Sure. So because of that, I was like, I got to pick something that's easy to say out loud and easy to read. So I chose something a little more simple.
I like that.
Yeah. Wait, what were you asking me?
How important it is, you think, like finding your identity as an artist kind of early on in your career? Because when you started and they were throwing you in and they were saying like, oh, hey, you're a DJ now, we need you to DJ. And did it kind of like catch you off guard with like the pace that you kind of had to catch up with what their expectations were?
It's weird. When I first got into it, I didn't actually think too deeply about anything. I just had my style. I had like this taste of music that I liked, which was like a blend of like house and hip hop. And I kind of have like a open format tendency. Like I keep everything pretty like underground, but it's always kind of like underground hip hop and then like mixed into underground techno and mixed into this and that. And it was always kind of like weird like that. So I didn't actually think of my identity until, I mean, like I kind of did, but like I didn't really like get serious about it until maybe like last year where it evolves constantly. Like when did I really start?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the importance really is like rooted more in like what's your sound, how are you going to present yourself so that it's more like palatable for other people, because if you're doing I almost want to say it's like not even about the specific genre. I mean, like it obviously is much easier as an artist to be like, I'm techno and I've always been techno and you could sell me as techno,
right?
But it's harder. The real like disconnect is when people try to do like open format club music, like bottle service music, and then also want to have this like underground identity. And I noticed that a lot of artists struggle with that. So like the main thing is like picking a side almost, you know?
So picking a side between pigeonholing yourself into like this, I'm a techno artist, book me as a techno artist, I'll play techno shows, or giving yourself the flexibility to kind of go in between genres and kind of mesh?
Yeah, I mean, if your identity is I am genre fluid, I play drum and bass, I play techno, I play like, I think like Miha is a pretty good example of that. But like what the real decision most people need to make is, am I going to be a open format bottle service DJ where you're playing like hip hop and pop and top 40s, or are you going to stick with the underground? And then if you are sticking with the underground, like what is your identity in terms of like, are you going to be disco? Are you going to be this?
Right.
Are you know, like people, there are a lot of artists, especially in like the experiment.
You can move the mic up if it's more comfortable for you.
Yeah, maybe I will.
There you go.
Okay, so there's there are a lot of artists like Fortet and stuff like that, and like even Ben UFO is a really good example. Like you think of him and you're like, you listen to his sets and they're really open format. I mean, he's playing like UK garage into like what is that? It's like I forgot the name of the genre. It's like the UK hip hop.
G House?
No, it's like rap music. He'll just play rap music into like dance hall so he like gets really open format. Fortet's kind of the same way where he'll just like break into reggae for like 3 hours.
3 hours. 3 of his 9-hour sets.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so I mean, they have their way of kind of like blending underground music and keeping it cool. I mean, but for the most part, you're not going to hear them at like a Las Vegas nightclub,
right?
You know, so
I think that's done kind of almost intentionally, because I agree with what you're saying. I just think it's if you do start to kind of put yourself in that, I mean, you want to call it like EDM pop, top 40 kind of sound, you almost lose some sort of credibility for the underground. And
the underground does not mess with the second you not sell out, but you know, like the second you go into that way, like that space, they sonically they just completely disown you. I mean, even visually, right? Like the minute you start kind of like as a girl especially, like you can do this whole like Instagram model / DJ thing, and you can play the top 40 Las Vegas clubs, and you can do that kind of thing, and you can make like pop EDM, and you can be really successful at it if you want to do that, but you can't do that and then turn around and go, no, I want to make underground music.
Right. Yeah. Or playing the underground with like an underground collective.
No,
and
because
do it after hours.
The minute it's weird, and I'm not saying it's right, but it's just like the minute someone sees you, they're going to be like, oh, you've lost a lot of credibility. Like, how do I know this is like you know, real.
Yeah.
You know, it kind of feels like fake in
Yeah.
a way. And it's weird because like I think our generation is really quick to understand or like interpret like fakeness. We look at an advertisement, especially during like the Super Bowl, and we're like, that's whack. You made me cry and this is for coffee. Like, you know, so we have like a sense of like no BS kind of thing.
Right.
So the minute we sense that, even with like artists, we completely shut down and we're like, we don't like you.
Do you think that's across the entire, do you think it's more of like a generational spectrum, or do you think it is because we live in a market like Los Angeles where we have every collective from, you know, straight techno to something that's a little bit more fluid in and out of genres, and you have the big clubs like Academy and Exchange and all these other places? Do you think we're almost the spoiled kind of demographic?
I don't think it's a spoiled thing. I think when you get to smaller markets like, I don't know, like Kansas City, you know, they're not going to be very like well versed in what Berlin is doing.
Right.
I mean, there might be people over there, and I'm sure there are like there is a probably good like underground scene. I noticed that with Dallas, that like I played in Dallas recently. Actually, I played there like last year a couple times, and they have this really like interesting underground rave scene that I did not expect from Dallas. I thought Dallas was like, you know, rock and country and that kind of stuff, but then I discovered this like really gritty underground scene, and I thought that was so cool. Granted, I mean, it's like a size room of like 100 people. It's not very huge, but I mean, they have the scene there. But yeah, they're not going to be like super picky, I think, in terms of like, oh, this one DJ plays way too many genres. And I think they will get, I think the biggest acts thing, like DJs like Steve Aoki get to play like all the small markets everywhere in the US because they are more mainstream and they do play music that those markets
are familiar with.
Yeah. So, I mean, it kind of goes half and half. But then you have to look at, like, other DJs, right? Like, there's, you know, I don't even know a good example, but, like, a good techno DJ. Like, I'm trying to think of someone that would work.
There's so many.
I know. Yeah. You know, I mean, it's kind of funny. Like
John Tejada. I don't know if that... I'm trying to...
Like, what's a mainstream techno DJ? I know. Is techno mainstream?
Like,
I thought techno was
right. That's what I'm trying to think of. Like someone mainstream. That's because when I'm thinking mainstream, I'm thinking of like, and again, not necessarily by the genre, but like Honey Dijon, Peggy Goo, Black Coffee. I feel like these people are maybe people who were kind of seen as underground artists at some point, and they were kind of being booked by the underground. And then I don't know if it's like their marketability or they're playing the right gigs or they're just doing it long enough. But now they've kind of taken a bit of the underground with them, and now they're playing like big festivals and stuff like that. So I don't know if that's exactly, those are the artists that you were kind of thinking.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see if like Peggy Goo plays in like Oklahoma. Probably not.
If they can pay her.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen her play a lot of European gigs. I haven't seen too many like smaller, even regular like artists that we would see here in LA. I don't see too many people going to like Tennessee to like playing. So I don't know if there's a draw because you have markets, I think, in LA. When people want to do their US tours, people look for LA, people look for
like Chicago, Detroit,
Miami. New York, Miami, Vegas, San Diego, maybe somehow. I know I have a lot of people that
San Diego's coming up.
San Diego.
Yeah. So I guess that's the whole thing, right? Like, do you want to like, that's like the first step in identity. It's like, well, what side of the spectrum do you want to go on? Do you want to be playing middle America and, you know, kind of appealing to like a more mainstream crowd and doing like a Steve Aoki type of thing, which is not bad. It's cool.
Right.
I actually really respect him. Or do you want to be like, no, I'm going to stick to more like Peggy Goo style stuff and play like music hub cities in America only. Right. And then be able to also play like across the world. Cause obviously like the rest of the world has different, much more varied taste. So it's kind of like making those decisions early on really helps define your path. And like the faster you make those decisions, the faster you get to your goal.
Absolutely.
So like if you're kind of like, it took me a while, especially I'm like 5 years in, it took me a while where I was like, I don't know. I kind of want to do my own thing. Like, why do I have to abide by these rules? Yeah. And I'm like, nope, the rules are there. You have to abide by them. Pick your side. You can't choose both.
And what have you picked? Big Room EDM Top 40?
Duh. No, I'm kidding. No, I've decided to stick. Well, my productions have always been kind of underground. I just like from a like financial stability standpoint, was really into the idea of just playing whatever came my way for a long time. This year I've been like, nope, can't do that. Sorry, not my genre.
Right,
so like
right.
I've had to turn down things and be way more specific because I know that in the long term it's going to benefit me more.
Right.
But yeah, it's kind of like it's a weird like situation, right? It's almost like, do you want like immediate pay but not very much long-term success, right? Like you can be an open format DJ and you can make a good amount of money. Like I know someone that every Saturday they get paid $1,000 to play at like this one Hollywood club all night, open format, every weekend, every Saturday. And that's great.
Can't be mad at that.
He's killing it.
Yeah.
But like a part of him is also kind of disappointed because he's like, I want to be an artist.
Right.
But they're like, sorry, you can't be an artist unless you're making like hip hop, you know, or like top 40 music.
Jeez.
So it's like, it's weird. And I've dealt with like a couple different, I've had these conversations with like a couple different artists where they're like, well, I want to make techno. And I'm like, yeah, but you're also this hip hop artist DJ and everyone knows you as that guy. So you can't make techno and do that. And unless you like split your identities and you go on like anonymous on one of them, I don't know.
Yeah, isn't it kind of circumstantial? I mean, in that instance, it's unfortunate that the finance kind of does play a role into it, especially when you're kind of just starting as a DJ. You're not going to get $1,000 bookings. You're not going to get to play with your favorite artists or open for your favorite artists. So I know a lot of people that are kind of, you know, they play what they can get because financially it just makes sense for them. Obviously, people who have careers outside of DJing might be able to afford not taking those gigs a little bit. But if you're diving into the DJ world and you're not really, you know, that set in anywhere else, that could kind of be something. But I think splitting his persona, where Saturday night he's, you know, this DJ that does open format, but that has nothing really to do with what he's contributing to the industry in the scene, could be like a way.
I know, but you know, then you have to work twice as hard creating and like establishing two identities. And gosh, doing one is just enough for me. I can't even imagine. But yeah, it's just very, it will cause like a lot of anxiety and confusion within like your artistic career if you decide that you want to like pursue underground music while also taking open format gigs. You just can't do both.
Yeah, I can see that.
The underground does not like the overground and the overground does not like the underground. So, you know, you just have to like suck it up and just pick. And like, you know, the faster, like I said earlier, the faster you decide, the faster your career will get to the point where you want it to be because you've already like set your path. So, so important.
Yeah, I agree. I think the underground where it's like the above ground and kind of the people who are in attendance don't really understand the music. They're kind of just going to party. They're going to enjoy.
I've met those people and they get really like I met this one girl who was like, I love when DJs play Kesha, like, and she's like a smart girl and she's like, I don't care. Like, I don't care about music. I just love when I hear Kesha. Yeah. And I'm like, cool. Like, that's not my thing. Yeah. And I probably won't be doing that.
Ever.
But
don't ever.
But like, I respect that some people just, and you know what, this is really crazy, but I was in Bali last year and my driver was telling me, he was like, oh, you make electronic music. Like, what do you make? Do you know Steve Aoki? Do you know, what's his name? Rehab. And I'm like, okay, yeah. I mean, I know them. And it was like, it was interesting because what I like really got from that experience of like talking to this guy about music was that like for certain people, they don't want to think that deeply, right? Like especially people in like very beautiful, tropical, easy lifestyle, like kind of places, like they don't have the same stressors as like what downtown LA is kind of pushing on you. So in that sense, like they don't want that stress in the music. They don't want to hear the kind of darkness.
Okay.
So they really do like look towards like more pop, happy, you know, very lighthearted music because maybe their lives are not the best, but like it kind of like fits in their environment and it fits in their kind of mindset of like, you know, I call it like escapism, but
sure.
Sometimes like techno and stuff like that can be very heavy and dark and it's almost like whiplashes, right? And that's cool. It's like a little, you know, it's necessary, especially when you're stressed out from like the environment that you live in. So it's funny how like, again, like environments kind of affect music and what your environment will do to your music is what the people that are listening to your music are going to feel. So, you know, I showed that guy my music and he's like, oh, it's very like, you know, deep. I'm like, okay, sorry.
You could see that the disconnect for him was like, not my kind of thing.
Yeah. He's like, not my kind. I like happy, drinky kind of music, you know? So
but that's what I'm saying. So that I mean, I like the way you think of it. I appreciate you giving him the benefit of the doubt where, you know, it might just be he's looking for something a little happier because of his circumstance. I also think there's a lot of people who just, again, like your friend, who just don't care. They're not there to understand, like,
they just
oh,
want to
this
have
is
fun.
good. Yeah, I'm not here for, like, this specific artist who plays the type of genre I like. I'm here to drink with my friends. Music's on in the background. We paid way too much for drinks. We paid way too much for the club. So I think, like, that kind of understanding of music, I think it's kind of almost switching a little to where the underground now, because there are artists like Peggy Goo, you know, just for the sake of since she's already in the conversation of how they were in the underground and now they're starting to come up, some people are starting to kind of come over, and the underground is almost the more predominant scene here in LA.
Yeah, there's like a middle ground.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's true. The people that like to listen to Kesha and stuff like that, it's like almost just like their brain shut off. Not that it's a bad thing. They're just like, I don't want to think about things right now.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to like be like, wow, this song is amazing. They just want to sing and like just have a good time and like not think about all the stressors in their lives. And then there's like the people that are like music fans. They're like, wow, this is so cool. This is the new thing. That like they appreciate maybe like more of the underground stuff. Peggy Goo is a really good example of someone that makes music that can almost be pop-ish.
Some stuff.
I think Spotify had a lot of help with that, with especially like with playlisting and stuff like that. You kind of get this like middle area, this like gray area of music where it's not necessarily underground and it's not on radio. It's like this intellectual pop music.
Intellectual pop music.
Yeah, it's like a little more like thought out, and it's not just like Peggy Goo who does electronic music, but she'll get playlisted with people like, what's a good example? Someone that like does like R&B.
Casey and JoJo.
Man, if I pull I'm not gonna pull my phone out. But like, there's like a.
You're more than welcome to if it'll help you kind of find the right supply with Spotify and the playlists that they get. Let's say, for example, like these artists that get bunched in on playlists, is it kind of just because of streaming things or is there a person that is putting them with this and then it just kind of spreads at everybody? I'm not a Spotify user. I'll go on record saying I'm not a Spotify user. I don't understand the algorithm. I don't understand how it works. Playlisting doesn't make sense to me almost, but
yeah. I mean, I think so. Like, for instance, I don't want to say it's okay. So the playlist Pollen, there's like specific. I see what they're doing. It's like specific soundscapes that kind of are vibey, like summery, like chill songs that also have like a lot of soul to them. So it doesn't really matter what the genre is. It's almost about the feeling of the song.
Right.
So like, it'll be like Monte Booker, who is a like. I want to say he's like, Chicago, like house hip hop mixed with like Peggy Goo and then mixed with maybe like a chill Doja Cat song. Right, and like, so yeah.
So it does the mixing for you, it sounds like.
Yeah. And it's very like, it's almost like genreless, but essentially like someone like Peggy Goo can be in that space where it's like the budding artist, almost pop, but not necessarily like sell out pop, you know.
Do you think that ties into, well, there goes that. Do you think that ties into how her personality is kind of perceived through social media? Because someone like Steve Aoki, where he's kind of like a larger than life figure, which, I mean, on top of the music he plays, because I feel like anybody can go on and, I mean, no disrespect to him, but play like a Steve Aoki set, top 40. There's certain things he has in his songs, but it's his personality, the way he throws the cake, his social media presence. Yeah.
I was recently at this panel and Grimes was talking to Zane Lowe, and they were talking about like identity and how essentially like artists, like successful artists, are avatars of themselves. They're not real people. They're just like this very contrived, like distilled version of themselves. So you look at like someone like Steve Aoki. I mean, from what I understand, I don't know if he really wants to be throwing cakes at every show, but he does it because he's expected to. Yep. And so that in itself is kind of like part of his avatar. Like he hasn't cut his hair, you know, part of his avatar. It's like this very specific identity that he's created and that people are like in love with. And that's so important. Because again, like anyone can play a Steve Aoki set, but if you're just like some random DJ with no real like discernible features, you just kind of look just like average, then no one's going to remember you.
Right.
But if you've got like long crazy hair and you throw cakes at every show and like throw like, you know, spray bottles and you start screaming on the mic, jumping off things, like it's like a performance, sure, but like, you know, there's something to admire about that. And the same thing with Peggy Gou. She has a very like distinct look. She's really representative of the culture that she comes from. Even like her visuals, like in terms like I love her song covers. They're so good. But again, all of those little pieces, every visual thing that you could possibly think of and that's tied to Peggy Gou is all part of this big story of like who she is as an artist.
Right.
But it's also just a very distilled version of it, right? You're not like watching Peggy Gou go for a run down the street from her house, you know, like we don't know that background side of her. We just know the part that like she wants us to know, and that's easy and like helps her persona as an artist. So yeah, all part of identity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think it's easy? I mean, as an artist, because I'm not a DJ, so I couldn't really understand. Is it hard to kind of maybe portray yourself or try to portray yourself in a certain way and then for it to kind of backlash where you're maybe being misinterpreted of how you're trying to get your personality across? Because there's someone like Steve Aoki, let's say, for example, when he was first started doing that, I'm sure he didn't know that it was like going to turn into his thing.
I know, but it's too late.
Exactly. So is there a point where an artist can kind of get caught in that, and then is it easy to like maybe rebrand and cut all ties to that former persona? Or do you kind of like, is there a way?
No, once you get to that point, it's done. Yeah, I think so. Rough. Because like you look at people like, for instance, David Guetta, I mean, he's like very much David Guetta, you know, he's been doing it forever. He has a very distinct thing that he does. And like sonically. And then he got over it and he's like, I want to make something darker. And then he started his side project, which I can't remember the name of, but,
I can't either.
But it's good. You know, I have songs from it. It's like kind of a EDM techno vibe, but it's good. And so like, that's the only way. I mean, there's other artists like Deadmau5, right? Yeah. He wanted to do darker. I don't even know why he needed to change his,
what does he go by?
Test Pilot.
Test Pilot. That's right. Yeah.
So, you know, you get, I mean, I guess the real reason why he had to switch identities is so that he didn't have to wear the mask the whole time. But yeah, once you get to a point, like when you're so distilled and you've got so many fans, like you really just can't change anymore. You've hit the, you know, end of the road with that. You're basically like the public will take whatever it is and create their own image of you. And that's what you want, especially as an artist. You want people that can take like your cartoon character of yourself and just like throw it across the world and be like, I love this person. It's almost like they're falling in love with like a superhero, right? Like you don't know about like Superman's like workout regimen, you know? So like, it's kind of like you want to like, yeah, it's just a distilled.
It's the idea of them.
Yeah, it's an idea. It's a very you have, I mean, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, even like Billie Eilish is a great example of someone who's just like, I don't know if she even went into it thinking like, oh, I'm going to be this kind of person. But I'm sure like when you start to get positive feedback from like the different personality traits and the way that you dress and the way that your music is and the way that you talk, all of a sudden it becomes this character. And then she's, you know, and now look at her.
5 Grammys.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like that self-fulfilling prophecy almost like that character. As much as like some people don't want to be, I don't want to be the girl that everyone kind of looks at me in that way, but that's kind of part of the reason why she became so big.
Right.
So it's like, I almost feel like is it even possible to become that next level without an avatar?
No, you have to have it.
Yeah.
Tell me one big mainstream artist that doesn't have some sort of quality about them that's super, super, like you just know it right away. You think of Britney Spears, you think of her blonde hair, you think of her in like a schoolgirl outfit, you think of pink hair, like just.
I love the artist you're naming. I'm thinking like Carl Cox, Green Velvet.
Like Green Velvet. He's actually, I've just read in an interview in this book, which I'm not going to say which book because it's not out yet.
Got it.
That you know, his biggest inspirations were people like the Rolling Stones and stuff like that, who were very like distilled, again, iconic people that were characters. And that's why he dyed his hair green. He's like, I'm going to become this, again, like this character. And again, that's what people latch onto. Carl Cox is a good example as well. I mean, it's not like it's not you. It's just like a almost like cartoonish version of you. And the more cartoonish you can make it, the better.
Yeah.
So
I
like,
agree.
That's just been like a, you know, a driving force in like identity, I think, is like, how can we make you almost unreal?
Yeah. How can we make you more marketable when you're just who you are.
Right, because it becomes too complex when you think about all the different personality traits that you might have. Like, you know, there's this one singer like Sad Girl Sloan. Her whole thing is sad songs and sad emojis. Like, really easy to understand, and she's doing great. So, I mean, Grimes, she's very like ethereal and like, you know, sci-fi, and she just embraces that entirely. I mean, we don't know about her in high school, really, you know, like we don't know about her like more boring, mundane like habits, because she's not going to share those things with us, because that would like complicate the image.
Right. That would almost kind of destroy the image of what she's built in your head is gone now.
Yeah, it's exactly it. It's like you've built this character in your head.
So what would you like? I think it is based in like social media, honestly, and the fact that nowadays, because so many people are choosing to DJ because they're seeing larger than life figures like Steve Aoki, like Peggy Goo,
Marshmello,
like Marshmello, for crying out loud, we forget about that guy. Marshmello, Deadmau5, people. I mean, you put on a mask and you become something else. And now, do you think that's almost diluting the trade for someone that is a DJ who's trying to, you know, you understand your route, you understand the music you're making?
I don't think it's diluting it, because people don't create avatars of themselves.
You think it's the general public that kind of helps with that?
No, I mean, I'm saying like that people just don't put the work in. So a lot of people become DJs, but then they're just like frat bro DJs, right? Or like they're Instagram model DJs, and like that kind of you hit a ceiling when you kind of get there. What really takes an artist to the next level is defining your identity and creating that like almost cartoon version of yourself, and having this really almost distilled, like like my thing online at this point, because I've like kind of shifted this year, is like rave girl, like cartoonish, short black hair, rave girl. I actually have to like cut my hair. I have a haircut on Thursday. It's getting too long. No, but things like that will take it to the next level. Then people are like, oh, she's super serious about it. She's the package. So yeah,
that's smart. I can see that.
Most DJs don't get that far. And then, you know, they give up after time. They find another hobby. They find another interest, and that's it. I mean, there is a lot of clutter. There's a lot of music coming out. I think there's like millions of songs coming out every week. But to cut through the clutter, you have to have the platform, and you're not going to get that platform without a solid identity. So it's really like, I don't personally get worried about there being way too many DJs, because I just know that they're not all of them are going to put the work in.
Right.
So it's not just,
if any.
Yeah, it's not just like creating your own music, but it's also creating like having such a solid, easily identifiable identity that then will take you to the next level, that will get you that platform, and then you can get on that label, and then the label will push you hard, and you know, and that's all things that like kind of are just, you would think they'd be easy, but they're not.
They're not. You
know, people don't pick that up. When I first got into DJing, I was like, I just like doing this because it's fun. You know, I enjoy this. And then you're like, after a few years, you're going to be like, well, why haven't I really gotten to where I want to be? I've had all these great gigs. I've played all these different festivals. How come I'm not like, you know, why am I not Steve Aoki?
Right.
And you have to be like, okay, well, that's probably because as much as like I'm creating the music and I'm creating the DJ sets and I'm playing all these shows, the one thing that's not working is that people are not, like, I don't stick, you know? So they see me, they're exposed to me, they're like, wow, I like that. But if it doesn't like have like almost like a story and they want that story.
Yeah. So like, what am I going to be able to search from her? Like, who is she? And then you hear the name and you're like, oh, that character. And then you go to social media, and then from there they can kind of lead you.
Right. And then you create this character that they love, right? Yeah. It's like, again, like Superman, you know?
That's huge. It's weird that social media is really taking, I mean, it's taking careers to the next level, because you get X amount of, let's say, followers. Even for someone that does bookings, a lot of times we try to find artists that obviously are not too common here, people that people don't really hear from. And even if they don't necessarily have a distinct like persona, you do look at how many people follow them, how many people listen to their music, how many tracks have they put out individually. And then from there, you want to try to help market them so that they can be memorable to everybody else. And
it doesn't always stick, does it?
It does not.
Because they have to have an identity.
Yeah.
And the ones that have the identity are already too big to, you know, hold on to. So it's weird. I mean, even Fisher's a really good example of someone whose identity is like goofy Australian guy, and it works for some reason, right? Because the music is kind of goofy. He's kind of goofy. He's really funny online. So, and Fisher, easy name, you know? So it's funny how those things kind of like coincide. And that's really like what is the difference between like, you know, you think back to like 5-10 years ago, who was your favorite DJ then? Are they still playing?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Only the ones that really, really figured it out and got their identity to be like super like concise are the ones that are still around today. So
was your introduction to music how long ago was it? Was it in the early like 2000s kind of thing when the rave scene was kind of just starting to come back?
I went to my first rave at 15 on my 15th birthday.
Which one?
It was in Hollywood, Florida. And it was at this place called Club Exit. Oh my God.
Club Exit.
So sketchy. I honestly...
How'd you get in at 15?
It was all ages back then. Raves were all ages when I was a kid in Florida.
That's dangerous.
I know.
Especially in Florida.
Yeah, it was dangerous. Super bad.
Yeah.
Should not have been there. But it was great because it kind of like started me off. And I just remember like going to all the different rooms. I honestly can't remember what any of the other rooms were playing except for the room that I was in. It was like the size of a closet and it was like the drum and bass room. Jesus. And there were just like 3 people in there with me. And I was like, this is cool. Like I've never heard this before. But yeah, so after that, like I went to a lot of raves. I went to EDC at 15 and 16 and 17 when it was based in Los Angeles. It was also all ages until I turned 17 and then this girl died.
I was at that one, 2010.
Yeah, 14-year-old girl.
Yeah.
I think she like...
She was 14? I thought she was like 16 or 17. Damn.
No, she was 14. I mean, Los Angeles is crazy.
Right.
But after that, then they like raised the age limit to 18. But then by that point I was like... I turned 18, so I was like, okay, cool, whatever. Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, I started young. I had like a interest in like rave culture and rave music and just music in general. I mean, I really liked like Alex Metric, the Phoenix remix. That was like my favorite. And I did like Steve Aoki and the Bloody Beetroots and like.
Bloody Beetroots.
I know.
Damn. Yeah. So I mean that Dead Mouse and Bloody Beetroots and that music that was back then, as much as we started to kind of enjoy or take the music early on in our musical careers, so to speak, or our understanding of music, our tastes have developed. So I feel like a lot of people that are just now turning 16, 17, 18, they're exposed to everything. When we were coming up, it was just a certain kind of EDM, almost top 40-ish,
right?
Trance and kind of
trance.
Yeah, that was like the era. And as those artists developed, and some of them kind of stuck to their guns, like Dead Mouse and David Guetta and Tiesto and whatever those people that we remember, we kind of grew with them, and then we kind of left them behind because we started finding like that's not just this kind of music and dance.
It goes deeper.
It goes way deeper.
Yeah.
Deep into the underground.
I know. I mean, also I think once you hit like pop realm, it's really like the further you go into the pop realm, it's like really hard to go back. I mean, I think someone that does it decently well, because he doesn't really care financially anymore, is Calvin Harris. He's just like, yo, screw it, I'm just gonna make acid breakbeat music. And you're like, what? I mean, I appreciate you, but his fans are like, wait, what the heck, we want funk, wave funk volume 4 or whatever, so like, yeah, he doesn't care that he's pissing off his fans. So I guess in that sense, like, what does it matter? But like, financially he doesn't need to worry about that. So,
yeah, because
he could do whatever he wants.
Yeah, he's getting booked by his name. A lot of people, even event promoters or people who are booking him, they're booking him for Calvin Harris. They're going to sell out every time because people are coming to see him. They don't know necessarily what exactly he's going to play. A lot of people don't care. A lot of people might go and they'll be disappointed because this isn't the Calvin Harris that I'm familiar with, but he's kind of given himself the ability to play different stuff. I
think he also understands, I'm assuming, that like if you're playing at Live Miami and it's a bottle service nightclub, you're not going to be playing Acid House. But
you would hope.
We would hope. But yeah. But I anticipate that he's like probably looking at like, how do I get to play underground sets? And like,
you think?
I think so. Like a lot of DJs, especially now that like techno is so popular, is like all these other DJs, all these trap DJs, they're all making techno. And what they do is they just go like Carnage techno set underneath their name. And like, I guess that's one way to kind of handle it. But if you read the comments on like any sort of, if you read the comments on like any sort of flyer that says techno set, and it's usually like at techno venues, all the comments are always kind of like, what the heck? No, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Why are you booking this person? So like the fans are kind of like, the underground is unforgiving.
Techno snobs.
Yeah, they're unforgiving. They're purists. And I get it. I mean, you cherish something that's not mainstream and then it becomes like for everyone and you're like, what the heck? You guys ridiculed me prior. Like this is not fair.
Do you think that's happening? Do you think that genre, like let's say for example the techno genre, where before it really was for like not an elitist group, but it was for a very particular group of people who they got to a point where they really understand the music, or they like to think that this is not for everybody and they prefer that. So the techno music was for them only, and
it's
now
like an
that
outcast kind of vibe. Yeah, I think so. I mean, techno now is obviously mainstream to a certain extent. It is as big as like some of the other genres. But I also I think that's like, because it became mainstream, now it's like, okay, let's push all the other ones up.
Yeah.
So like I noticed this year, like everyone is talking about breaks music and drum and bass. Everything wants to be more drummy, which is annoying to me as the outcast making drum music for like a couple of years now. Now it's like cool. And I'm like, okay, great.
Right.
But I guess whatever. It all comes in cycles. So I definitely think that like, you have to kind of just deal with it.
Yeah.
Techno's not going anywhere. It might have been mainstream this year, especially with like big festivals and stuff like that, really like specializing in that sound. Yeah. But I mean, it's been going on forever. So
yeah, same with tech house. I mean, tech house, I think because of the extremism of nightlife attendees, I like hate to say that people who really are following the tech house genre are more following it for the party than necessarily the exact sound. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you could say that about practically like any sort of genre, right? You're going there because of the community, and the music helps. A strong like party brand will have like the right like message with their community,
right? But you would just hope people would,
follow along
with it.
Yeah.
Well, you have the unfortunate, I guess to say unfortunate, of like you playing the drum and bass for a long time beforehand. And you were kind of wanting to keep it to, and now it's all of a sudden it's cool, and you're like, well, where was it when I was appreciating it, and I was trying to push my sound as that.
Well, thankfully I wasn't making drum and bass. I was just making weird drum music. I don't know how to define it. I've never been able to define my genre, but it wasn't drum and bass. But yeah, I think there's nothing wrong with like things becoming popular. I think it's like nice to have a bigger community. I think it's when like it gets flooded in with the wrong crowd, like the ones that are maybe a little bit more aggressive because you look at like outcast communities and most of them are kind of like a sensitive kind of, artistic type,
Right.
It's for like marginalized people. And it's when you like look at like bottle service. I don't want to like insult frat bros,
no.
But like, people that are like a little bit more macho, can like kind of make those people feel isolated and uncomfortable in those spaces. So, I mean, as long as you can protect the space, I guess, what does it matter? But yeah.
It's hard to gauge.
Yeah, there's always going to be like a back and forth battle. There's, trying to find the balance is always like the thing.
So what are your current like motivators in understanding this whole space and what you're trying to do with your sound, where before you were kind of, taking the gigs just to kind of go with it, but now you're understanding your sound, you're understanding your avatar, so to speak, like you're understanding what you're trying to do in your direction. Like what's your motive? What are some of your motivators in music, in the industry? Because you live in LA, so here you have access to everything. You have all the collectives playing every sound. Well,
so like I really like to do this thing where I play all the genres of the underground and I mix them really like fluidly into each other. So like I played with this group called Prospa on Saturday. They're really awesome. They do like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like breaks music, but with big synths. I don't know if that was proper. I'm doing a really bad.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
They sound great.
Whatever,
they're super fun. But because a lot of their music and the way that they play is breaksy, which is like crazy drums, almost borderline drum and bass, but maybe slower. Because of that, I was just like, okay, well, I'm just going to take this opportunity to play breaks. I'm going to play drum and bass. I'm going to play techno. I'm going to play house. I'm going to play some like weird drum Rasta music that I found. And I just like kind of blend it all together. And I noticed that people they're very receptive to that. And it also kind of keeps me from being like cornered into like the techno side or the, drum and bass side. Because I have a mutual respect for all genres. But it's like, so for me, I guess like what I've decided that I'm going to be doing is it's almost less about what genre. It's going to be more about like the overall vibe, and like gauging it based on like underground versus mainstream, right? So like, like I look at like what I'm playing, like when I played that Prospa show, I was leaning slightly more to the underground. Deliberately, because I knew that the crowd would be a little bit more receptive to that. And it would also, it's much more of a tastemaker crowd. So like I think they would be upset if I was playing more mainstream. Right. But then it's like I'm obviously going to get like booked electronic shows, right? So I'm not taking gigs at like open format nightclubs. I'm not playing in Vegas, but I'm still going to be playing, like for instance, like if a big EDM festival contacted me, I might not go as niche. I might play just slightly, maybe slightly more over here.
Yeah. You want to appease the crowd to a certain extent.
Just you got to give and take. It's a give and take, and you have to read the room. But all of that just to say that, like, in terms of my own personal, like, kind of growth and identity, I think the avatar is just like the rave girl. You know, it's like this, like, rave. It's like, I have this thing. I wanted to make a T-shirt like Kurt Cobain style, where you just like write in Sharpie on it, that says like non-discriminatory, open format rave music. It's open format rave music. You know, I'm not like being picky. I'm not going to be a purist. I'm not a purist. I like all kinds of music, but it is going to be under the kind of umbrella of rave music. Right. So that's kind of like the direction I'm going in now. And all my imagery is kind of just following that, like,
that makes sense.
Rave attire, rave this, rave that. And like, yeah, and that's kind of how that works for me. I mean, because I think also with this current era, genres are just like out the window. I mean, no one's like, some people are still being kind of rigid with their style, and that's cool. We need people like that, but also you can be a little bit more flexible.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think, I mean, I took a poll on Instagram. I was like, okay, do you guys, when you listen to DJ sets, do you like consistency or do you like, you know, variety? And the majority of people said they like variety. There were a couple people that like consistency, and I would say those are the purists.
Right.
But if the majority likes variety, then why not just appease to that? Like, it's clear, like, we can get away with it. Yeah. So we might as well.
There's no right answer. That's what it sounds like. But I mean, for example, with something like an EDM festival, let's say you have an understanding of your music and how you kind of want to usually stick to the left side. Does it? Because I've known a lot of artists that do get booked for the EDM, and you know that this is their opportunity to take the music that they. I mean, it's not that they don't believe in the music that they end up playing in like an EDM festival, but the music that they're usually leaning more towards left is kind of more of their sound. Do you think that the bigger picture of the festival kind of changes them, because you do want to appease the crowd and you do want to, you know, play them what they want to hear?
It depends, right? I like,
it's tough. Every
single show is a different story for me. It's a different way of me, like, kind of, you know, if I get booked with Fisher, I don't know. I'm trying to think of someone that's like a completely different sound than me. Right. So if I get booked with Fisher, like, and I'm direct support for Fisher, then okay, I have to be like very cognizant of the fact that this crowd is not going to be really open to some weird music. But maybe I'll drop a couple weird ones and I'll play a couple cool ones that everyone kind of understands. It's a little more direct, because there is like direct techno. I mean, I just made that up, but like, it's like more, here's like the, you know, build up and then really big kick and bass, you know? And so like, you can like blend songs like that are still cool and still kind of fit within the vibe, but also like sometimes sprinkle in your own stuff. But I think you have to be just like able to go from like super, super underground to, you know, just right at the cusp.
Right at the cusp.
It's weird.
Yeah, I respect that. I like the fact that, I mean, you're saying you've been doing DJing as a whole for 5 years, but the first, like, what was it, the first 2 to 3 years that you were kind of just all over the place, and then you kind of started figuring out your sound?
Yeah. I mean, I really, really figured out my sound, I think, like in the last 6 months.
Right. That's impressive.
It's
that's
weird.
Great. Yeah.
I mean, it's great. It's also confusing because a lot of it was like, well, I'm making all this weird music that doesn't really have a space in a nightclub. That doesn't make sense either. So, I mean, like initially I was making like deep house mixed with like, I don't know. If you listen to my earlier stuff, it's just like all confusing.
Oh, check it
because
out.
I really do like I've always been very like open, genre fluid, like I'm into all of it. So yeah, I think it's less that like I decided my sets were going to be a certain way, so therefore everything else was coming into like picture. It was more like I decided, okay, this is my avatar and this is who I want to be next year, and like this is who I want people to see me as, and I want so that it's easy for them to understand who I am and they don't get confused. So in that way I'm like rebranding, right? But like I'm rebranding under this. It's still open format, and it still allows me to be flexible with the way that I produce and the DJ sets that I play. But it's all under this open format of open format rave music, rave girl kind of like aesthetic.
Yeah, I support it. You have you got the understanding down very quickly, because a lot of people they go through their entire career before they're like, fuck, I should have kind of picked a certain direction. I could have picked me choosing a certain name and certain, way I perceive myself on social media to kind of help me out, but you got it down super early, which is, I mean, it's always a learning process, and I don't think you're ever done defining yourself.
No, it's true. I mean, by next year I could decide like, oh, I want to do this. But I mean, I think for right now specifically, I'm very much embracing the part of my life that maybe last year and the year before that I was a little more resistant to, which is the gritty cement city rave culture, nightlife. I was very like escaping that for a while, and I was making music that was more organic and like. What
do you think that is?
I was trying to find a balance between like the chaos of my everyday life and like me escaping to a faraway place, which is why I went to Bali. I was like, I just need to chill. Now I'm just like, you know what? Bring it on. I'm going to embrace this really intense, like kind of shitty side of like living in a city. And like this, it's gritty and it's dirty and it's not polished at all, and I'm gonna embrace it, and I'm gonna just become it, and like that's gonna be my identity. Like it's always been part of me, and now I'm just kind of like, okay, fine, you win, so that's just kind of like the direction for this year. I mean, I think as like I age, things are always going to change, right? Like I might get a little more settled down, maybe I'll move to a different part of town and there'll be trees there, so like who knows. But I think for right now, like I might as well just embrace such a huge part of my life and turn it into an avatar. So how the guy in the taxi, for example, how he was like, I kind of want to just listen to music that's going to make me happy. You were a part of the cement city, and it was kind of stressing on you, so you took it as an opportunity to make happier music that was going to kind of, it was like almost like a mental escape for me. Like like I wanted to be in forest. Like I was going into nature every weekend. I was going to Miami a lot. I was definitely just like trying to get out, but now I'm realizing that, it doesn't benefit me to do that. To hide from it. It's such a huge, I've been going to rave since I was 15. Like it's such a huge part of my life. I should just be okay with it. So like, so now I'm just like, you know what? This is who I am. I'm kind of silly. Sometimes I say silly things. I have a song that's called Meditation, which is like kind of the perfect example of me having this internal battle with like peace and the city that I live in. And the song is very like, just like banger techno rave vibe, and the words throughout it are like breathe in, breathe out. Wow. It's like it's time to meditate, and it's like that juxtaposition of like me just being like I really need to chill, and then like my surrounding area being like nope, you're not gonna get away with it. Yep. So
I love it. What can we expect from this year from Nala?
This year's full of surprises. I've had a crazy week. We'll see. I mean, I can't say too much, but I'm working on a lot of music, and I have a good feeling about how things are going so far. I've had meetings, and things are looking cool. People seem to be really into my avatar. Nice. All of a sudden, I don't know. See, just like a flip of a switch, man.
It's self-fulfilling prophecy. I think because you're kind of choosing to push that whole understanding that you have and put your effort into like really defining yourself and picking, to choose to go in this route, it's opening doors because you're accepting the fact that, X, Y, and Z. So other people are seeing that and they're like, hey, yeah, you're right. The direction you wanted to go, we're supporting it.
Yeah, they're just like, ooh, this is an underground female DJ rave person. We can put her here. Yeah. And I'm like, all right, cool. Like it doesn't mean that I can't later on,
of course not,
go into maybe like a more, because I have a lot of songs that were more down tempo, and I could still do that. So
you can do whatever you want.
I could do whatever I want, but right now we are focusing specifically on dance music because I also need music to be able to play at my shows. Right. That was a big part of it as well. It's like everyone's like, well, do you play your music at your shows? And I was like, well, no, this year I just made like vibey down tempo stuff because I was escaping my reality. So I guess I should be making things that I can actually play when I work. So that was
okay. So you're producing and your DJ sets, they never
they weren't really coinciding. It was and it was confusing, and people would be like, hey, are you going to play Gravity at this show? And I'm like, Gravity's a really slow song and we're listening to dance music. I don't know if you understand how weird that would be.
They probably don't.
They don't. They just wanted to hear it. Right. And it's like such a disconnect, and it's so sad, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to make music that you can listen to here so that when you ask me to play a song of mine, you can have it.
Yes, exactly.
And it's always cool also. Like I played Meditation at the party on Saturday, and it was so cool to see people actually like getting hyped to my my voice and my music. And I was like, whoa, okay, here we go. Like, this is a thing. This is what people live for. I get it now.
That's awesome.
So it's weird.
I like how excited you are about it. That's
I know.
good to
I
have.
really like the song.
Yeah, I'll check it out. I haven't heard it, but I'll.
Oh no, it's not out yet.
It's not. Well, when it comes out, I will check it out. So you played it for people without them, and then you got a good reaction from them.
Oh yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was. I have a video of it. The worst video ever taken.
Oh yeah, I saw your post.
I know.
Do you know the person that posted it, or you?
Yeah.
Oh okay. I thought you were just calling some random person out at the show. I was like, whoa, that was harsh.
Jessica.
This is probably the worst video ever, but thanks for recording it.
Jessica is such a...
God damn it, Jessica.
She was having such a good time. She was just like pointing the phone at the floor. I was like, God damn it. Oh, well. It's cool. I love her.
It's up there and the music's there, so that's
She's
good.
great.
Well, where can everybody find you on social media, on sound platforms?
Everything is This Is Nala. So THISISNALA. There's like variations of it. There's like on Instagram, it's like this.is.nala. But if you just type that in, it'll pop up.
Right.
So yeah, and then on Spotify and stuff like that, my actual artist name is just Nala, just for social media reasons. Obviously, I couldn't just use that. I think I'm...
Is it taken by someone else?
A cat. I know.
Sad.
The most famous cat. Like
really?
literally the Nala cat. The most famous
I'm
cat.
not familiar, but...
Yeah, so...
Yeah, you kind of lost that battle then.
Yeah. I mean, they have like 7 million followers. There's no winning against this cat.
A cat?
I know. And they actually trademarked their name as well. So I think that's pretty funny as well.
How do they trademark it if you have it trademarked? Or they trademarked the social media?
No, I think they trademarked Nala Cat. But you can trademark, basically you can have a trademark for an ice cream business and it won't interfere with mine.
Oh, okay.
You're trademarking specifically for specific things.
Got it.
So mine is strictly for production, music production, and live performances.
That's
and
awesome.
anything that involves around basically like music in a live setting.
Oh, okay. So I could call this podcast Nala and you can't do anything about it.
You know, I don't know, but...
I won't. I promise I won't. But, right. I see what you're saying.
I should ask a lawyer.
Yeah,
I have no idea. But yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming out. Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to touch on? Any shout outs? Anybody? Anything else we missed?
No, thank you for having me tonight.
Of course.
It's been a wonderful conversation.
Thank you. The pleasure's mine. Thank you guys for tuning in.